Hello, guys. Welcome. Happy Monday. As always, if there is anybody kind of hanging out in here with me, if you can type in the chat that would be next to you how the sound is, how the music is, how I sound, how everything looks, that type of thing, would be fantastic. In the meantime, we're just going to kind of go through. We're going to take a look at what the bot did today. We're going to take a look at what the market did today. We're going to take a look at what we are going to be playing with and what we think the market might be do soon. And then we will feed the bot for today. So while I get set up here, if someone could just type, if there is anyone, in chat there. I'm going to also tweet that we are live, and we will start taking a look at the SPY. Alright, I'm gonna pop out the chat here, and I'm gonna move the chat into this area just in case. I'll do that during the Q&A. A little bit after. So, the markets today and the markets recently. What else do I need? Need my pen. Okay, no one has told me, but I'm going to assume that sound and lights and all that are working and just kind of go. And if someone shows up later and tells me otherwise, then I'll take a look at them. But we've been talking for, seems like weeks now, that we are in a base, and it seems like that's kind of the case. But if we zoom in here, things are looking okay, thanks. Sound fine, video fine, great. We kind of broke a little bit near to the top of this base on Friday. Today they tried to push us down into this kind of resistance area where we met with some strong buyers, moved higher. And kind of base sideways for the rest of the day and closed pretty near the high of the afternoon trading. You know, a little bit shy of this and a little bit shy of the post market. So all in all, everything considered looks bullish. As some of you guys know, which I'll explain here in a second, I'm going to look at both sides either way, which is the beauty of just kind of having a robot do all this for me. So let me bring up the trades for today here. And again, I've kind of converged these all into one window, or two windows, so you can take a look. For anyone who doesn't know, or if anyone is new here, welcome. What I do, one of my style of tradings is, I'm an algo trader by nature. So I build back-tested algorithms, just crunching numbers, have bots auto trade that. At the same time, I've been playing a lot more and really enjoying this hybrid style of trading where I have intraday algorithms set up, but I choose the stocks that I want them to trade the next day. And what we do here, I did it all last week. I don't know if I'm going to do it all this week, but I have some time today, so I figured why not, which is probably how this is going to be going forward. So make sure you follow me on Twitter, which should be below the video, as well as links to trade ideas and my email and all this stuff. Just in case you want to fire me an email, learn more. I do some trader mentoring, and then the link for trade ideas, if you're interested, is down there as well. So I use trade ideas to take the entire universe of stocks out there and filter it based off of some very specific criteria that I look for. I then feed those into these alert windows where the kind of procedure would stop for a discretionary trader. Discretionary trader could build these windows that are looking for certain situations to happen on stocks that they've chosen the night before or the morning of to watch. And then when they see them go through, they know, okay, it's a daily pattern that I liked, a daily stock that I liked, and an intraday pattern that I liked. I should take a trade here. Myself, I auto trade these, so I'll plug them into a bot. it will see it come through, it will enter a trade, put out a stop, put out a profit target, take care of everything from there. So first we'll go through what happened today, and then we'll try to figure out what we're going to do for tomorrow. So going through the shorts here first, AME we had on this list is just a bit of an overextended stock with some topping action. We had a bit of a gap down, a bit of a sell-off early, and a pop up into a bit of kind of this congestion resistance area. The blue arrow you can see on the chart, Trade Ideas will note the candle in which the trade entered, and then you can look at the price right here, and if it's too small I'll read it out obviously. So that's 60.27 was the short, and pretty decent trade. Sold off early, bounced a bit, was kind of worried a bit. I watched for the morning this morning, and then I just kind of took off for the afternoon, but came down on this last push. It got my partial, which is, again, just for transparency, is 70 to 80% of my position out, and then I try to hold the last tiny bit just in case, which you'll see today was fantastic. That just in case, and had a little bounce back up here at the end of the day where the bot just kind of closes whatever I have open right at the close or a few minutes before. So that was the first trade of the day. That was a good one. BERY, we had a kind of strong early sell-off when it bounced back to kind of meet this support area. Excuse my very crooked lines. You can see the blue arrow here, and the bot shorted at 55.51. We pulled down here a little bit, bounced a bit more, came back down. At this point, at this second attempt at this area, I moved my stop to break even, and that came out and stopped me out break even. So that was a nothing trade. Speaking of nothing trades, we were looking at Zillow here as just insanely overdone from 33 to 44, and as day traders looking for a small move back. Today we had a bit of weakness early, bounce back. We took a short here, and you can just see pretty much nothing all day. So that was a do nothing one as well. Team I didn't get a fill on, unfortunately, kind of, I guess. The fill would have been in through here. You can see you got a little bit of a push down, but nothing really to write home about, so I guess I'm not worried. Just for reference, anytime you see multiple occurrences of the same symbol within, we only focus on the first one because that's what I've programmed the bot to take, is only the first one. Sorry. I say programmed. I didn't program anything. I'm working with a couple people to help build this. Hoping to get it out across as many brokers as we can and market it from there. But so we're only looking at the first alert. INXN was a stop. Again, for reference, I risk about a quarter to make about a half, right? So on AME here, we're up about a half point. BER and Zillow and Team, I guess, were flat. INXN triggered in through here and just kind of pushed right up right away and stopped me out on this kind of further push up here. And Yum was kind of another do nothing, but gave us a little bit of juice here at the end of the day. You can see it triggered right here, just chopped sideways all day. A little bit of a push down at the end of the day, so I did irk out a tiny profit on that, but I think it was like 10 cents or something, so it certainly wasn't anything exciting. IPHI, we were basically seeing that it had gap down here, and it was under the Bollinger Bands, overdone. It was holding this gap very strong, so we were hoping for a bit of a strength tomorrow to push up. The robot entered again near the blue line, and this one just stopped out for 25 cents pretty much right away. It gets better, I promise. It's going to be interesting. There's going to be a takeaway from this one, which I'm excited for. FLXN, we pulled back right like we want it to this kind of support resistance area. We had a small bounce when it came back down, took a small loss there. And then this is why you always try to leave that last bit if you can. CATM, C-A-T-M, we're holding support in this area. We noted that on Friday when we did our last kind of wrap up. Pulled back down to that support, showed some strength as it popped up. When it neared highs is when the bot took out most of the position and then just continued to run most of the day. I actually came back in the office around this area, and then when we pushed down into it, I got stopped out the rest, so that was a fantastic winner. Hubs, no fill on hubs. I don't know what I was looking at for volume. I'll bring this in. This is where you guys should yell at me, because look at this. 400,000 shares was higher than normal volume. So I'm glad I didn't get filled on it, but I'm not surprised I didn't get filled because there's just no volume there. And the trade of the day, and I'm going to thank Steve Gomez personally via Twitter for this, because he's been pounding the table on this for a long time with the heavy short float. We noted that we had a gap up, and then we had a pull back right to fill the gap, and then a really small daily bar. So we put this in tomorrow, or we put it in Friday for tomorrow today. The bot looked at this as support, took a buy through here, pushed up in this area. I think is where I took most of my position out, ran up more, and then again I was back in the office around here when I saw us pulling back. That's where I took out most, or I took out the rest. So the things to note is that we had a stop out here. Like if we just ignore the shorts, which didn't do too much, but if we just look at the longs, we had a stop out here. We had a stop out here. We had a good trade here. We had a good trade here. And then nothing, right? So 2 good trades, 2 bad trades. Only as good as a coin flip, right? But now is when you start bringing up the calculator, right? You start to... It's very important, I find, that traders do this exercise where you try to internalize risk reward. Now, for example, let's just use the 2-to-1 risk reward. I got a little bit better because I had that trailing bit, but let's just look at a 2-to-1 risk reward. So I risk 25 cents per trade. Again, I don't talk about numbers, but say you were a 500 share trader, right? $125 per trade, and you lost on 2. 250 bucks. That sucks, right? But again, if you're managing your risk reward correctly, I think everyone knows what's going to happen next, right? You made 50 cents on your 500 shares. Again, I did a little bit better, but let's use a minimum equals. And then you took 2 of those, right? So being right, only the same as a coin flip on my longs today, trading 500 shares would net you 250 bucks minus commissions. So again, anyone, regardless of how long you've been trading, has heard cut your losers quickly, let your winners run. But until you really internalize that, that is the difference, I think, between when you're going to be a fantastic trader and not so much losing money or breaking even. It's this one simple concept today, right? I was only right 50% on my shorts. Now I was right a little bit more on my long, so my net correctness is higher than that. But if we just look at the longs, there was still, even with only 500 shares, there's still a fair amount of cash to be made with a 50% win rate. So finally, a takeaway. Not just me rambling to a computer hoping someone's on the other end, but it's good to see that in real time. You do not have to be right all the time. You do not have to be right often. You just need to manage that risk. And one of the ways I do it emotionlessly is just with a bot. So it's the wrap up for yesterday. Again, can't complain. Did a little better than, I don't know if I crunched the numbers, I'm probably in the 60% win rate. The 2-to-1 risk reward was a little bit better than 2-to-1. Let's just try to repeat that for tomorrow. So again, while I scan, I like to chat with people, answer questions. I think the best time for both sides, and basically the thing that I enjoy the most is just shooting the shit with people, answering questions, that type of thing. So if you've got any, let me know. Just type them in the chat here. I'll bring the chat over. We'll answer them. Hey Kareem, how's it going? All right, so let's quickly go through yesterday's list. And again, I do this every time, but you can go to tradeIdeas.com/symbol-list-editors. You can create your own lists. You can feed those lists into whatever you want. So I feed them into alert windows, and that's how I kind of do this from there. Comme ci, comme ça. I am, as a Canadian who lives right next to a fully bilingual province, really bad. I know that means like whatever, so, but man, I'm bad at it. I can ask to use the bathroom, and that's about it, and that's because they would make us do that. So far, none of these are looking team. Still kind of interesting. Yum, I'm going to leave Yum in as well. It was a very nice trader today. Just watching it traded very well. Again, we've just noted that Yum's made a pretty strong move up to this area. By the indicators, it's overbought. I like to look and see pretty established resistance up here. So if the bot gets a short anywhere in this area, right, I know right when I'm wrong, and that's hugely important for traders. Where am I wrong? Should always be your first question. And I'm going to give Zillow another shot up here, Z. And again, I will go through the full lists. I know I'm inputting them on another monitor, but they will update here when we're done. And I'll go through them all at the end, and then I sit around and see if there's any questions, and then we call it a day. I actually watched that, I don't know if anyone follows me on Twitter, but I warned everybody that there was a chat about Monster. I'm going to add Monster on here. Just a big move up into this resistance area. Pretty established intraday resistance and established intraday support. So I may feed this one into the robot for a support break tomorrow. And again, I use Trade Ideas built-in support algorithm, which I think is phenomenal. So hopefully we can get a short in this area with a stop somewhere up here, and then 2 times that risk, right? From here, do I think it's feasible to get 50 cents out of it, which I guess would be in this area? Yes, right? So again, my eyes go here first, and then here. And when I'm here, I'm saying, okay, how would the bot trade this? What would the trade actually look like? Do I think it's reasonable for, me wanting to risk a quarter to make a half? Then I go over to here, and this is a very underutilized window, I think, in Trade Ideas. I have it set up my way, but you can do whatever you can basically put here whatever you want. I like smart stop. I like to know the average true range. I generally like to look at the short percentage, what the float is, volume, and then how that volume relates to its average, right? So a rel volume of 2.7 means we're knocking on the door of 3 times volume today on this this push up. So Just looking for it to bounce its head off of there. Triple D. Interesting. And flirting with this resistance area here. Of course, thanks. So, I guess it's better to see it in through here. And then just to go back to why I'm looking for these particular setups, I did get a email saying, do these support resistance areas work all the time? And my answer was support and resistance works all the time. But the reason I always start out my scans with what do I think the market's going to do is because I think it's most stocks that trade any amount of volume are going to follow the market in some respects, right? So if I think the market is really kind of has potential for large moves, I might trade a little bit more momentum stocks. But if I think the market is going to chop around, which is really what we've been seeing each and every intraday for a long time, as long as we've been in this space, if the market's going to chop, then I'm going to want to play with that chop, right? So no, I won't continue to look for this one thing forever, and you'll actually see these scans that I built change over time based off what I look for in the market. Basically, if we get a nice strong move above here, I'll probably start to look for fades on the short and more momentum plays on the long. But for now, right, we're kind of smacking our head up against this resistance. The market never tries to make it easy, so maybe we back and fill a bit for a while. Oh, Kareem, you're California. Next winter, I might move down and just sleep in your basement and trade. I love Canada in the summer. In the winter, it sucks. I mean, a nice winter stroll gets very boring very quickly when it's 6+ months of it. This particular scan is, again, just looking for stocks outside of the Bollinger Bands. Oh, you're from Toronto. Yeah, Toronto's, I think, worse than Nova Scotia, where I'm at, just because we're a peninsula, but it's still pretty bad. This is interesting. So we got a little bear flag forming in through here. Right, we had a gap up, strong move lower, and then we've just kind of been chopping forward ever since. If you look at the intraday, you can see clear resistance up here. So I'm going to add this one into the bot as well for a short. Yeah, watching that Yates or whatever testify with the whole Trump-Russia thing, it was the biggest waste of time my entire life to watch it. Again, I'm Canadian. I really don't care too much about your guys' stuff, but you know, I was sitting there and I run, there's a trading room with my prop firm as well, which I try to poke my head in as many times throughout the day as I'm around. And, you know, I saw this going on, so of course I'm warning the guys. And, you know, oh, you know, they might say something that stirs up the market, and I sent it out on Twitter, but nothing happened. They don't say anything. So I'm going to add this MOH in here. Huge push up. It's over the Bollinger Bands on the daily. Again, the actual numbers right here. So anything over 100 is technically overbought, and we kind of just filled the top of the gap here. So this could get a little reversal tomorrow. Let me add this in. So we have a suggestion from chat to look at box. The only thing I don't like about box is your average true range of 30 cents here. Now, that's for algo trading. If you were discretionary trading it and you wanted to get a short in this area and a stop up here, you could probably risk. Now, I know it went way outside its ATR today, so this may be a very good risk-reward play, but I don't think I'm going to add it personally. But if I was sitting there watching it all day, I think this is something I would look at. So we're nearing the top of this list. We've got 6 shorts. I try to go for 10 on each, and that's about it. I don't... part of the major benefit of algo trading and auto trading and bot trading is I don't really have to watch this intraday. And the more I load this up, the more I would feel obligated to. I do put into our bot, and it's something we have programmed, just a max amount of trades per day until it stops. So I know there's not going to be 10,000 trades that happen. But the more I'm feeding in the feed of these kind of setups, the more I kind of feel like I'm stretching. So we're just going to flip this, because right now this current window is looking for things outside its... Oh, it is. It's 60-minute Bollinger Bands here. So we're actually going to switch this and flip it over. Again, I think I did that too quick. But if you right-click inside any window and you want to see what the window would produce looking at the exact opposite filters, you can just hit this flip button and hit OK, and you get just the opposite side. We've been watching W for a short for a long time. We were watching it because it beat its head on this resistance area, right? Now it's poking through it a bit. It's got some more up at 55, but I think inside this box, as long as we have this kind of parabolic move, and it's according to the indicators overbought, then I think we're going to keep it on that list. So I have a question here. Speaking of ATR, does a breakout of the ATR significantly a possible trade? Can you elaborate a little further on that question? Okay, so we're going to go to one of my favorite scans, and this is just called the middle finger. So essentially just looking for your very stereotypical kind of hammer candle, right? We open up here, right? We trade up, we fail, and we sell to the bottom. So it's just a kind of custom scan within Trade Ideas that will just find things with topping tails, and then I've got one for the reverse as well. I'm going to add electronic arts on here. One of my favorite kinds of trades are failure trades. So if you look at this daily chart and you leave out today, right? Forget about this candle for now. Right? Big strong move up, bull flag, nice little gap up. They tried to sell it down, they failed, and they had this nice little hammer at the end of the day, and then it starts moving up today. That's a textbook breakout. When they reverse that and they kind of slam, it's like you're playing volleyball, you spike it back down in their face. Quite often I've noticed these can cause a little bit of panic and maybe a little bit of selling tomorrow. So we're going to leave it in for kind of weakness under this level. And then again, we know what we're looking at here for downside. If we get up over and back over, hold over 96, then it's probably no longer interesting. This AIO looks good, but again, one of the things, and I always try to point this out, when I go over here and I start kind of mosing over these, I'm just looking at the range saying, okay, if we took a support break here and we put our stop up here, right, that's like $1.50. So we'll just move on from that one before I get in trouble. And that's just personal preference when it comes to trading. Some people really like super volatile stuff. You know, some people really like super low float stuff. For me, I just like really chill stuff. You know, I've always thought that the best trading is boring, right? You don't get any wins that just, you know, freak you out, or if you do, they're very small and minimum. And you don't get any losses that freak you out, right? The losses you take are very controlled. But it's entirely, and there's a question just popping in the chat, it's just entirely up to you. Again, I'm algo trading, so I want to take this size with this risk and this possible return, and that's it. Whereas if you're discretionary trading, you could just look at AAIO and say, oh, well, you know, say I'm usually a 500 share trader. You could say, all right, I'm just going to take 100 on this, you know. And, you know, say if you try to make, on average, say $100, you risk $50 to make $100 on a trade, and you see that the stop for that would be $1, right? You just take 50 shares. You know, if you're risking $1, it should be reasonable that you're going to get 2. So it just makes that simpler. So again, the volatility of stocks is just total personal preference. And for me, I just like the chill nature of this kind of 2-to-1 risk reward scalping. I'm gonna add Mo on here. What I'm looking at in Mo, a lot of volume, you know, pretty decent tight smart stop, great ATR. We had this bear flag and this long congestion, right? A breakdown out of it, and then we've kind of been pulling back up into it. We put in a nice topping tail today, and it was pretty much right out the gate, right? The market tried to take us up over 71, got slapped down, and then couldn't really muster a bounce for the rest of the day. So again, just the, you know, your typical was resistance, now maybe support for a continuation, as well as just the intraday chart looking good. I know I can risk 25 cents because from here to here is 25 cents, and it's possible to get 50. You know, that's a little over half the ATR. Might not, but I know where the risk is, and that's the one thing I'm always managing. So I only have room for one more here, and then we'll go through the longs, and then any Q&A, and then we'll call it a day. That's never what you want to see, right? I had that on the long list yesterday, and I really considered it there. Short today. We're going to add CVS in there as well for our last one. Same kind of setup as Mo, right? We had a sell-off, bounce, topping tail today. I see a pretty defined, if I can draw, resistance line here, right? Pretty defined support here, right? From here to here is 20 cents, so I could get away with my risk. From here to here is 50 cents, right? So it's probably logical for your reward. So again, the reason I do this kind of trading is because that's, I believe, my strength. When I play to the strength is strategy development kind of outside the heat of battle. So that's all of our shorts. Let's do our longs before our wrap up. Let's look at what we had on the long list today and see if there's anything we could add for tomorrow. This AKAM is very interesting now. It's sold off, picked up steam, and it's kind of smashing into the low here, this last pullback where it bounced. So we're going to add this one in. It's a good trader as well, lots of volume. CADM was great today. I don't think I'm going to go back into that bucket. I think I'll leave that. Another beauty of robot trading, right? The bot just completely ignored this because of the pre-market action. DFS, I think I added on the weekend. I'm going to put this one back in as well. We've been selling off pretty dramatically since this up move, and we're kind of smacking our head right on prior resistance, which may become support. I was looking today on Friday because we had kind of support in this area, and that held again today. So again, if we can back and fill here at all before moving higher, or even just a break of this resistance, could just cause some profit taking from the shorts to come in. And that Weight Watchers was a good trade. I will have to remember to tweet at Mr. Gomez after this. Okay, so just like how we had a short scan, and that short scan looked for topping tails, this is just the complete opposite, looking for bottoming tails. So we have a question in the chat room about my ATR with my risk. Let's go back to AKAM. The question was basically where I talk about, I want to risk about 25 cents. And again, I do have certain strategies. Some, risk 40 to make 80. It's rarer that I trade those, right? I have some that that's generally about the highs I go, but I have some that are even lower that risk 15 for 30. And again, the way I measure the risk is I'm looking at AKM and I'm going to plug it into kind of the support, play this as a support play algo. And I'm kind of looking at here and I'm saying, okay, well what is that exact price? That is 50.12, right? And then what's the high kind of in this area? Well, that's 50, 30, 50, 40, right? So you're talking 20 to 30 cents was all of the range for the prior day, or the end of the day, right? So is it reasonable, and even, in the beginning of the day, right, if I can get a bounce like this tomorrow, is it reasonable to risk 20 cents in this scenario, right? So that's, again, I don't verbalize it a lot. I use these as guides, but again, that's all they are. The point of this kind of trading is not to be 100% robotic, right? I have robots for that, right? I program strategies that are 100% robotic. So again, when I spend a lot of time over here in the intraday chart, I'm just measuring the distance and thinking in my head, could I get away with a 25-cent risk on this stock? And I think the odds are yes. And again, let's go to DFS. DFS, you can do the same thing, right? If you measure the low here of about $60 even to the high here of 60.25, right? You can see that most of the day's range was only about 25 cents. So again, ATR lines up with us with that, or the smart stop, and then the ATR being wide is just fantastic. You know, if you're trying to make 50 cents a day, you generally speaking won't be able to say, oh, I only want stocks with a 50-cent ATR, because then you're asking basically the stock market gods to get 100% of the ATR, which is essentially means that you are looking to buy the low and sell the high of an average day of that stock, which if you're doing that on a consistent basis, please come and join our prop firm, right? That's impossible. So again, the numbers are guides. I'm doing a lot of kind of eyeballing intraday, and as well as you always want to measure the risk, because that's the only thing you can ever control, and then just look and say, okay, is my target reasonable? I hope that makes sense. If when I answer a question, if it's a good answer, just let me know. If it's you have follow-ups or I just rambled off on a tangent into obscurity, let me know that as well, because that's more than possible. So we're going to get a little bit more momentum looking on the long side. So I'm going to bring out the short squeeze top list next, just because it is, it just looks like it's possible, right? That we're going to have a nice breakout and things are actually going to start kind of moving in our favor. I'm going to add CTSXS here. Right, it's possible. When we were looking at the SPY, we were saying, although I don't think the market will make it that easy, we are putting in this bottoming tail on the daily right up against resistance. So, you know, a textbook kind of breakout setup. Again, I don't think it's going to be that easy, but I am going to be starting a little bit more looking for bull flags and that type of thing on the long side. So when we get through this list, I'll bring out Steve Gomez's short squeeze top list, which essentially just scans all the stocks in the market, filters out things that are, you know, really crappy intraday traders, and just presents us with just things with high short floats, high short percentages. And on Friday's talk, if you wanted to go back, I do talk a lot about kind of the dynamics of a short squeeze and why we love it as intraday traders. But basically, things can just snowball and get a little bit wacky. So, load from cloud, and let's get the squeeze. So again, this is not looking really for technical patterns here. It's just looking for things with high short flow percentages, and then from there I'm going to try to use my eye to look for things. I'm going to bring in these chat room here so people in the video can see them in case I do a poor job in reading them. Have you ever used a scan looking for stocks that out of its ATR within 95% of its range, considered reversal? Yes, I have. One thing I use for quite a bit of my scans is a filter that Trade Ideas has that's just called standard deviation breakout and standard deviation breakdown. And you can actually plug, and what it will do is not only just a simple ATR, but it will do an ATR standard deviation on an ATR, right? And if you remember, bring up my pen, if you remember your old kind of statistics class here, right? You've got your, that was not bad, your old bell curve, right? And then they say, okay, 67% of everything falls within the first standard deviation, I think, and then low 90s and high 90s, if I remember correctly. Anyone better at their stats, let me know. So basically, if you say I want something that's kind of 3 standard deviations out of its range, then you know that there's a very slim chance that it gets there. So it's just a little bit more of a sophisticated way to ask the same type of thing that you were just looking at there. Thanks. Work with adding that column to... Yeah, well, what you might want to do is you might want to build, instead of a top list, you might want to build an alert window and have it alert you to when something is breaking out that is has a really high ATR, right? That might just be a scan that you kind of want to start playing with. We're going to add First Solar in here. We've been holding the gap up phenomenally, facing sideways. Poked our head out today. This 35 area has been strong support and resistance. So I'm going to actually see if we get a pullback and we hold that 35, possibly for a move higher. And SRPT as well. It's a small gap, but we did gap up here, run higher, came down to hold the gap. Good volume, decent smart stop, decent ATR. Right, if we can get filled anywhere near 32, this will be a decent stop, and we could definitely get our expected target. Right, and then this just shows that sometimes it's good to scan by the specific chart you want to look for, and sometimes it's good just to scan by potential, I guess, which is what I'm scanning by now. You know, all of these have the potential to get crazy, but none of them have kind of the interesting area, right? None of them have like a super interesting chart. So I just continue to scan until I see something that my eye picks up, right? So the beauty of trade ideas is all the different ways to formulate numbers. And that's all it is. You're just manipulating numbers. You're trying to figure out what has the potential to move. And then on top of that, you're using your technical analysis skills. So just like I showed you guys earlier, we're going to flip these 2 scans that we're looking for over bought stuff, and we're going to look for oversold stuff. Now, this might be a hard one, simply because the SPY, the last few days anyway, has been moving up. So something that counters the SPY, looking for stocks that move down, we might not get the best stuff. I'm going to add Twilio in here as well. I know this gap really disappointed the entire world. Very interesting when you see kind of these 100% retracements. So we have a really nice looking bottoming tail. And this one is a really high short float as well. So it has that kind of latent potential. Okay, so Eric asks, when browsing, what is the order of things you look at, like daily ATR, and if it's interesting measuring? Essentially the way you laid it out there. So the first thing I always look at is the daily chart, right? Ideally, what I'm trying to do with this is I'm trying to pick a basket of stocks where I think have a directional bias based off me just staring at charts for years to move one way or the other tomorrow. And then from then, I'm filtering it out and telling the robot to trade these intraday if certain things happen. So essentially, this is obviously going to be the most important thing, right? I wonder how many obscene looking things I draw, not mean to. So right, I look at this chart and I don't see any edge kind of one way or the other. So this would immediately disqualify it and I'd click down and move on, right? But let's say, let's do this a bit in real time. See if I can see. Okay, MASI, right? So now I've looked at this and I've said, okay, well this move is substantial, right? From over 100 to 85 in 3 days is a substantial move. And then I'm noticing that we're getting declining volume as we push lower, and we've got this kind of support area here forming, right? So my eyes started here, identify this pattern as something that I think has the chance to reverse later. From then I look at the intraday chart and I just see how the first initial look is how it looks intraday. Like, how does it trade? Is there any support, any resistance? Do I see a lot of gaps within the 5-minute candles, which would make it less tradable? Then I'm taking a look at the numbers, right? I'm saying, okay, well, 1.5 million is 2 relative volume, so, it's 750,000 to a million would probably be average. Then I take a look at the ATR and I say, okay, well, the thing definitely moves enough to get the money that I want out of it. And then I see the smart stop, right? So then the smart stop, so this would be 3. The smart stop is kind of my first warning, right? Again, I mentioned the other day that 25 cents is the smallest and 75 cents is the biggest. And anyone who's new, smart stop is just a volatility metric that Trade Idea built. And it does a good job of saying, okay, you could roughly get away with this, right? But now that I've seen that, I've got my first warning in my head. So the last step before whether or not it will decide whether it will make the list or not is to come back here and then just to measure what is, the 25 cents I'm looking to risk, right? So I'll take just a snippet of the chart. Let's zoom in here to make it easier. So I'll take a snippet of a chart from here and I'll say, okay, well, what would happen if the robot identified, say, this is support and entered, near the top of it, right? So that's 87.70, and then down here is 87.02. So that's disqualified this for me. I just won't add this because this is just too much. So I don't think it's at all possible that I could get away with the risk that I want to get away with. So we start here, then we go here, and then we look at the numbers, and then if all of that checks out, I may eyeball this for another second and then put it on the list. But we saw a little warning here, so then I'll take the warning and I'll take a look at it from there. Again, just because I don't want to purely rely on numbers, because then I'm just creating another fully automated algorithm, which just adding that to other fully automated algorithms would be kind of redundant, right? I shouldn't be doing this then. So Eric says 75 cents seems like a deal breaker already. But again, if we take a look at DFS, or even say AKAM, and we do that same look, and we zoom in on the daily chart, and I go from here is, like we talked about, 50.12, and then up here is 50.35, right? So this is 25 cents, right? So that still had an AT or a smart stop 75, which put the warning in my head, which is then why I came here and I'm taking a look. I'm saying, okay, well, for it to travel that 25 cents, it takes, 15, 20 minutes. So if I'm wrong for 20 minutes, I'm probably just wrong. So again, if you want to go purely by the numbers, that's fine. You might just want to look to see if you might just want to get into automated trading if you want to be a purely by the numbers guy, which again, there's nothing wrong with that. I always think the more kind of checklists, the more discipline, the more things like that you can add to your trading, the better. But again, for me, I use these as kind of red flags and warning systems, which I'll then go and investigate further and see if it's reasonable to expect the risk. And I guess the other thing is how quick it is. I did it right there while I was kind of blabbering on because I liked this oversold sell-off. I looked here and I saw numbers that I liked, good volume, good range, and then I just kind of measured. You may have saw it real quick. What's this, right? If the bot got in here somewhere, what stop could I get away with there? So when I did that, that was 60.02 down to 59.60. So that was 40 cents. So that's borderline. I'm not going to add that one because I'm not super in love with the chart, but that would be something that would be kind of borderline there. So just to note that it doesn't take that much. STOR, I'm going to look at if this is a support area, if we go back enough. Kind of. So I'm going to add this one on here. Simple oversold, generated some support today. So again, this will be a support play for tomorrow. And we have 7, so we only have room for 3 more. Interesting. My initial, for the daily, look is basically just at what is the pattern, right? What is happening to the market? This list tells me that it's below its Bollinger Band, so it's technically oversold. But if these indicators worked by themselves in a vacuum, you would never hear about them, right? So I believe that these can be guides that you use then for your eye, right? So there's going to be some of this that I'm not going to be able to quantify, and that's just because it is just technical analysis. So I'm looking at what's happening, and then I'm also looking at where that may change, and basically trying to figure out if I was on the other side, if I was short this stock, where would I look to cover, right? So NXST, probably around $60, and then if we got through that, I would probably try to get 55, and then through that, probably down here to 46. So I don't like the volume on this one, so I'm not going to add it. But again, there's the chart part of it is the unquantifiable, right? That's what makes this from a pure algorithm to kind of a, as I explained it, where the bot is more of kind of my execution trader as opposed to just doing a full consistent algorithm. Some, I guess, materials for pure technical analysis if you want to learn a lot of it. Stephen Bigelow from the Candlestick forums is pretty good. He's maybe not the most exciting to listen to, but he's been doing swing trading using technical analysis for like 30 years, so he's got to be doing something right. Brian Shannon from alphatrends.net is a monster. He's just fantastic. Yeah, I've been following his YouTube videos for years, like 10 years now. So I've seen him kind of at the whoops. I've seen him, go through the 2008 collapse and come out the other side fine. I've seen him go through this insane market that just goes up every day forever and come out fine. So he obviously knows what's up. So there's definitely better than me technicians out there that would be interesting to learn from. I have to add, modify this. It's giving me a lot of really low volume stuff, so I'm gonna say 1,000,000 shares, up that. And again, the beauty trade idea is just how quick. I just saw that it was giving me a bunch of garbage, bunch of things that had done 100,000 shares, so I that quickly can say just don't show me those anymore. You mentioned that you didn't like the volume. For which one? Which one was 14 million and I didn't like? Because I might go back to that if I misread that. No, I don't. I basically am just looking at volume as a liquidity measure. It's easier when you're a seasoned trader or a discretionary trader to finesse your way in and out of stocks with big spreads, with less than great volume, these type of things. But when you're auto trading, you have to kind of define the order beforehand. So I can't remember. Sorry. No, if I passed on something that was 14 million that I said the volume I didn't like, then it was just a mistake, I guess the way to put it. But when you're discretionary trading, you can be a little bit more liberal about that. Auto trading, you have to make sure there's enough liquidity for your bot to get in, or there's no sense if the stock did exactly what I wanted to, if it did exactly what I wanted to and I didn't get a fill on it, right? So that's the only reason I use volume, is I just want to make sure that the fill is good enough. And then volume is also going to be related to size as well. If you're trading 100 to 200 shares, you can sneak in and out of position easier than if you're trading more than that. So definitely keep an eye on your size, right? If you're trading something that's got if you're trading something that has a very small amount of volume, and you're trading very small and you're getting really good results, you need to know that those results may not carry forward the whole way, because as you start trading bigger, you'll actually affect the price of the stock as you're trading. I'm going to add SKT in here. Decent move, decent smart stop, down. There's really not much support here. So again, this is just a pure oversold play, and then we got some intraday resistance to play off of here. So we're going to add him in for SKT. So we have room for two more. As the market sits up here, it's obviously getting harder and harder to find things selling off and hitting resistance. I'm going to add in Viacom, VIAB. Technically oversold, bouncing off this little breakout level here. 3 days now of bottoming tails, and 36 seeming to be the important number for this one. thought about putting ATV on today, but decided against it. I don't know if I would have ever gotten a fill, but it looks like it would have been a great trader intraday. So the question is, Viacom poor earnings 3 days ago. Would that change your thought for long? No. I believe in technicals over fundamentals. I actually believe in statistics over all of them. But that earnings is already out. That news is already out. It's had 3 days to digest. So I think that those particular numbers would be completely and utterly irrelevant at this point. I think that there's people with PhDs that are just 24/7 trying to figure out what the next earnings report, the next fundamental piece of data, and how that would affect everything. And they're smarter and have more time and more resources than I do on that kind of thing. And they're still usually not making a lot of money. I believe fundamentals are only important if your perspective is really long. For example, I'm a gamer and a nerd, and I think GameStop is just dead. It's just a dead man walking. I think it's going to be my generation's Blockbuster. There is no reason now to ever go to a GameStop for any reason at all. Every game that you buy just downloads directly. And they've been trying. They're just, as a gamer, they're just a horrible person to deal with. But I'm a day trader. I'm looking again to risk 25 cents to make 50 cents on a handful of trades tomorrow, and hopefully to be right 1 or 2 more trades often than I'm wrong. So fundamental data doesn't interest me, only as a way to avoid. If I knew that earnings were coming out for Viacom tonight or tomorrow morning, then I wouldn't put it on my list, because I think when fundamentals happen, they can hit into it. But I don't think that it's really anything that's interesting for intraday traders. Again, unless and there are some people who will sit down and watch for the data to hit and then look at how the stock reacts to it, right? I've never met a trader in my entire life who sits there, reads fundamental data, makes decisions off them, and makes consistent profits, right? The guys that I know that use fundamentals, they use them as ways to supplement technicals. So if Viacom, for instance, 3 days ago reported really, really bad earnings and the stock gapped up, 20, 30, 40%, they would look at that and they would say, okay, the price action and the fundamentals are not aligning. Maybe there's a trade to be had here. So a little bit different with that. Our last guy is going to be Facebook. It's had this nice gap up. Tried to pull back. It's tried so desperately to get under 150 many, many times and keeps getting resisted. Facebook, obviously, insane liquidity, a great trader. And you'll definitely be able to get away with risking kind of whatever you want on this one because there's so much liquidity. You're not going to get any jumps, 20 cents or so. So if I can get in near 150 and then risk a little bit below that, looking for a bounce and a continuation from here. Kind of knowing that it's going to move with the market, which again our synopsis was at near highs, bullish action near highs. I don't think it'd be that easy. So with you on Facebook. Okay, cool. So let's quickly go through the lists. We'll go through the shorts first as the longs update, and then I'll hang out for a little bit as long as there are questions, and then we'll call it a day. So for short, CVS, big sell-off, bounce back on lower volume, a lot of topping action in this area, and a nice intraday chart, good volume, the whole 9 yards there. Data, gap up, but then a sell-off, a big push higher. Noted this area here as resistance. So if we can get short anywhere near there on any weakness that's displayed up there with a stop above there. Triple D, just running up. We noted this is an area that it turned around before, so we're just seeing if that might be oversold. Turn around again. EA, a little bit of a fake out here as it breaks out, pulls back, and kind of, I use the analogy of when you're playing volleyball and you get the ball spiked in your face. It's kind of what happened to the people chasing that breakout. Monster, just a big strong run up to where it pulled back before. Monsanto, same as we were looking at CVS, where we had this kind of breakdown, a pullback up, and then some topping action, some resistance forming in through there. MOH, a simple overbought play. From 50 to 67 in 3 or 4 days is just a bit too wild. We noted that this kind of area up here on W is resistance, and we've kind of come a long way to get here. Yum, just still flirting with this resistance up here, looking for either it to fill, back and fill sideways, or to pull back. And Zillow, good trader today, still kind of respecting this $40 resistance. So at least I know where I'm wrong. If we break out $40, there's a probably strong likelihood we continue higher. AKAM, we noted this as an area that it was pulling back to. So just a simple oversold play with some intraday resistance or support forming. CTXS, just gap up and has been all contained within the gap up day. So holding very, very strong, very tight to these highs. DFS, down here near support, a lot of support forming intraday right at 60. So we know quite a bit when we're long. Facebook, strong move, pull back. Sellers, every time we break 150 they're just getting creamed. So just kind of looking for them to give up. First Solar, kind of like we were looking at CTXS with a nice strong gap up, and then it's been holding quite strong ever since. SKT, simply oversold and intraday support forming. SRPT did this little gap, came down, filled the gap, and a nice bottoming tail on the daily. STOR, same kind of deal. This is support from way back, but just kind of looking for an oversold bounce. Twilio, big short interest on this one. So this bottoming tail that we put in, if you looked at this, it's kind of the exact opposite as we were looking at on EA, right? Where you had a strong move, a little tiny dip, and then it pushed higher, and then the longs got slapped. And then it's kind of the opposite here, right? We had a gap down, and then a sell off, and then gap from there. And Viacom, basically just weak move, gap down, near a breakout area, and it's just been holding 36 strong. So that will be our list for tomorrow. So let's go through a few questions here. Can you walk us through what are your options regarding the alert settings? Again, that's going to be entirely based off what you want to see intraday, right? The list you build is going to be what you want to see on the daily, and then the entry criteria is what you want to see intraday. And there's just kind of too many settings to go through. I've noted before that these support and resistance are kind of algos within algos, right? Trade Ideas scans and has a little algorithm to detect what is support and what is resistance. I highly recommend those. You can get something pulling back to support or something that's pulling back to resistance or breaking them. And then there's your simple candlestick setups, right? So you can look for topping tails, right? Bottoming tails. You can look for hammer candles if you like to play off of those. Maybe you want to do a support play and you want a 15-minute hammer candle in that area. Tons you can go through, right? But it's kind of, what do you want to see, right? And then next question, some of these can break either way. Can we place them both in potential long, short, and see where it'll break? Yeah, you can. If there's certain setups, if you're saying, okay, this is support and this is resistance, you can just build two algos and say, okay, we can put one here and we can put one here, and then whichever one triggers first, get me in. We do have settings within our bot that says don't trade the same symbol twice, even if it's in different strategies. You have that option. So you could say, okay, if it triggers the long, don't hit the short, and vice versa. Again, that's entirely up to you. For myself, I'm not really, I've got a specific thing that I like to do, and I'm just going to continue doing that and try my hardest not to overcomplicate it. So I will hang out for another little bit. If there's any more questions, let me know. Again, if you're interested in Trade Ideas, links below. If you're interested in mentorship service or anything like that, my email is below as well. Twitter's a great way as well. I don't tweet much. You're not going to hear about kind of what I had for breakfast or anything like that. But I always if I'm planning on streaming that day, I'll usually, an hour or so before I'm planning on say, hey, I'm going to go live in an hour. And then any videos that I upload, I'll also tweet them out as well, so you can see them there if that's something that interests you. So just a few more minutes until questions there. While we do that, I'm going to go to channel bar and where's the after hours? Yeah. This is a nice little channel for just displaying things that are kind of moving after the market. So sometimes there's some information to be gleaned there. And ore is moving a fair amount, so I think there was time for the delay to catch up, so there must be no more questions. So I'm going to take off for the night. Possibly do one tomorrow. We'll see. Again, the best way to find out is just Twitter, and then I'll tell you whether or not I'm planning on going live from there. So maybe see you guys tomorrow, if not at least one or two other times throughout the week. So talk to you guys later.